Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Today we're talking about people and we're talking about music. And if you talk about people and you talk about music at the same time, you're probably going to be talking about a famous classical music composer.
Yeah.
And we could talk about Beethoven or Mozart or Bach or Mendelssohn or whoever. But today we're going to talk about someone by the name of Schumann. Okay, he's a German composer. His full name is Robert Alexander Schumann.
Yeah.
And we're talking about him because he's one of the greatest and most influential composers of the Romantic era. You've probably heard his music somewhere.
Yeah, I actually took piano lessons quite seriously when I was growing up. I had a book of Schumann that we practiced, Schumann sonatas. We have divided the classical music at least. Classical music is divided into different periods or eras. He was in the Romantic period. Probably my favorite music comes out of the Romantic period. Mozart, Beethoven, they preceded him. They came before him and they were in the classical period. So we're going to be talking about Schumann and kind of the stamp or kind of the influence he had on music at that time and some of his songs. I think that most of our listeners probably won't be that familiar. If they heard a Schumann piece, they might not know it was composed by him. But we'll talk a little bit about him and his literary themes. He wrote a lot about music as well. So let's get started, guys. We're going to read through today's lesson, and then we'll be back. The German composer and prominent music critic, Robert Alexander Schumann, is considered one of the greatest and most influential composers of the Romantic era. Some of his most famous and characteristic works are Papillon, Carnival, and Davidsbündler Tanze. His compositions experiment with form and style and celebrate emotional expression. His music is known for portraying emotions through melody, incorporating literary themes, and breaking away from the limitations of classical music. Schumann's father was a bookseller and author, and greatly influenced young Robert's love of both literature and music. Schumann started taking piano lessons at the age of 7, and as an older child, acquired a passion for music and began to compose pieces of music. However, when Schumann was only 16, his father passed away, and his mother attempted to influence him in a different direction, encouraging him to abandon music and pursue a career as a lawyer. He attended law school for 2 years, but then returned to music by taking lessons from the famous music teacher, Friedrich Wieck. During this time, Schumann injured his right hand, ruining his career as a pianist. After this incident, he devoted himself to composing music. Schumann later married Wieck's daughter, Clara, who was an accomplished pianist herself, despite Wieck's objection. The couple had 8 children together. Schumann helped create the Neue Zeitschrift für Musik, New Journal for Music, where he published many of his critical essays. This journal helped renew interest in past composers, such as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Ludwig van Beethoven. It also promoted new talent, such as the musicians Johannes Brahms and Frédéric Chopin. While he was well known in his lifetime, much of the appreciation for his work came after Schumann's death. Today, his music is regarded as poetic, groundbreaking, and a true representation of the Romantic form and style.
Let's talk about the article now, okay? Let's get down to brass tacks. Now, we're talking about Schumann, composer of the Romantic era. So, of course, you've got lots of composers from different periods in history, different periods in music development, I guess.
Right.
Renaissance, medieval, Baroque, classical, Romantic, modern, and stuff like that. The Romantic era, what was that? That was after the classical era?
Right.
Okay, and what kind of music is Romantic music?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful melodies and really sumptuous kind of beautiful harmony as well, but they focused less on notes. Remember Mozart? He was note, lots of fast notes.
Okay.
Beethoven was moving into the Romantic period. If you listen to Beethoven, even though he was part of the classical period, he had started to compose music that was more like the Romantic period. My favorite composer is probably Brahms and Rachmaninoff. They're both Romantic composers. The melodies that they came up with were just luscious. Beautiful.
They just kind of took off their clothes, so to speak.
Not really.
Instead of classical composers were wearing these stiff suits and stuff
Very
like
uptight.
that. More uptight, more formal. And the Romantics just kind of let their hair down and let it all hang out.
Beautiful.
But in any case, yes, Schumann is a composer of the Romantic era. This is kind of music that modern people might relate to. So let's talk about the German composer and prominent music critic Robert Alexander Schumann. He is considered one of the greatest and most influential composers of the Romantic era. So we're describing Schumann in various ways here. Of course, he's a composer, which is somebody who writes music, and he was a prominent music critic. Prominent usually means you stick out. Like a building, a tall building can be prominent because it sticks out, but in this particular case, prominent means important or famous. So he was an important or famous music critic. Along with being a composer, a critic is somebody who basically writes about music or writes about something. They probably talk about it. They don't necessarily say bad things about it. When you see the word critic, when I see it, of course, I usually think someone's going to say something bad, but they don't always say bad things, although they often do.
Yeah, so he was pretty brave, I have to say, as a composer, to then have another part of your career be musical critique is pretty brave because he's composing himself. So I would think he would have to be kind of careful about criticizing other composers because they could turn around and criticize him. But he is considered one of the greatest and most influential composers of that period. Notice we're capitalizing Romantic because it's an era's name. Some of his most famous and characteristic works that really had his kind of his flair, his symbol. When you hear these things, you think, oh, that's Schumann, were Papillon and Carnival and David's Bündlertanze, which we've kept in the original languages, all of these. He was really pretty much a piano composer until the 1840s. All his pieces were for the piano. I played a book of collections called Scenes from Childhood. That's what I had as a young fourth grader learning his music. It wasn't easy, but it was pretty beautiful. So his compositions experiment, try out different forms and styles, but also celebrate emotional expression. He's very well known in the singing world, classical singing world, because he wrote a lot of what we call lieder, which are songs with songs set to poetry, which are quite beautiful.
Okay, yes, he's known for his piano compositions and his songs, basically. Yep. And it goes on to say that his compositions experiment with form and style and celebrate emotional expressions. Of course, if you're singing, you can really express yourself emotionally. And of course, if you're playing musical instruments like the piano, like the violin, you can be quite emotional. Now, his music is known for portraying emotions through melody, incorporating literary themes, and breaking away from the limitations of classical music. So this is how you recognize his music. He portrays emotions through melody. Melody is just how a song basically goes. A melody is something maybe you could whistle if you hear a catchy tune, and you might be whistling the melody of the song because that's the catchy part of the song. So this is probably very accessible to people because it has those melodies that are quite emotional.
Emotional melodies, yeah. Incorporating means to include something into something else. So he also incorporated literary themes. A theme is some sort of motif, some sort of topic that you're trying to kind of dwell on. His songs were definitely that way. He wrote a lot of songs, or Lieder, as we say in German. I didn't sing many of his songs. I was telling Tom he wrote for a louder voice than mine. I have a very high, lighter soprano. It's not light compared to normal people. But yeah, he wrote a lot of Lieder. It would talk about different themes, and the poetry was quite beautiful. And it says here he would write things that just broke away from the limitations of classical music. There were very strict rules to writing classical music in the classical era, classical with a capital C, that Mozart and Beethoven had to kind of obey. But Romantic era composers had a lot of freedom. Let's talk about his background now. He had a father who was a bookseller and author, and he greatly influenced young Robert's love of both literature and music. Most of us who have decided what our career is going to be have had someone who had a lot of influence on us, someone who had a great impact or effect on us, and that was his father. His father loved literature and music.
Yep, he was a bookseller, so of course if you're selling books in a bookstore, you're not really busy like you are if you're running a restaurant or something like that. You probably have a lot of time to sit around and read books. So he was an avid reader, the father was, and he imparted that love of reading on his young son, Robert. So Robert liked literature, but he also liked music, and he sort of incorporated the two together to create some really emotional music. And Schumann started taking piano lessons at the age of 7, and as an older child, acquired a passion for music and began to compose pieces of music. So I guess basically he liked books to begin with, but he started taking piano lessons when he was very young, and then as he got older, he probably started not to hate his piano lessons so much. He was probably forced to take them by his mother, who was probably a tiger mom or something like that. But later on, he thought, hey, maybe music isn't so bad. My mother has been doing me a favor. And hey, I'm not only going to play pieces of piano music, but I'm actually going to write my own pieces of music. He composed pieces of music. So you put together the melody and the notes and the different parts and the different instruments. That's composing pieces of music.
Yeah, we're going to find out his mother really didn't support his music like you would have thought he would. It was his father who supported his music.
So the father forced him to take the piano lessons.
Well, I don't know about force. He may have really wanted to take piano lessons. I did when I was a kid. Right now, guys, it's pretty much time for us to take a break. We're going to do that, and then we'll be back to talk about Schumann's history, his background.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 我们今天要介绍的呢是伟大的作曲家舒曼。首先来看到第一个空格的句子写着 His music is known for portraying emotions through melody, incorporating literary themes, and breaking away from the blank one of classical music. 在这里提到了他的音乐呢，以什么为著名呢？它是可以 portraying emotions through melody， 透过呢这些曲调来描绘情感，甚至可以融合 literary themes 这些文学的主题。那么跳脱古典音乐的什么？我们来看一下第一题的 A 选项 occupations 职业， B limitations 限制， C constitutions组成构造， D revolutions革命。当然他的音乐会这么有名，也就是他能够跳脱古典音乐的限制，所以搭配文意，第一题的标准答案就选择 B limitations。 接着来看到第二个空格的句子，在这里第二段第二个句子提到 Schumann started taking piano lessons at the age of 7 and as an older child blank to a passion for music and began to compose pieces of music. 舒曼呢，其实在7岁的时候开始上钢琴课，那事实上已经算是年纪比较大的一个小孩了。那么呢，他怎么样这样子的热情？那么是对音乐，然后也开始呢做一些曲子。第四题，第二题的 A 选项 acquired。本来是有获得取得，但是它也有学到跟养成的意思。 B cancelled 取消， C qualified 合格， D elevated 提升。正在7岁上钢琴课的时候呢，就养成了对音乐的热爱，所以第二题标准答案就选择 A acquired。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about Schumann, a composer of the Romantic era. He was German. He not only composed music, though, he was a prominent or well-known music critic. He would critique other composers' work, which is pretty brave considering he's a composer as well. So I wonder if he ever insulted another composer and that composer turned around and, critiqued his work, but was very critical. Who knows? Anyway, he's a very famous composer. We found out that his father was the one who kind of instilled or put that love of music in him. His father loved literature and music, and Schumann started taking piano lessons at the age of 7. It's not really young to start with piano, but it's a good age to start. As an older child, that's when he really developed this passion for writing music or composing music. You can use either of those verbs when you're talking about someone who writes music. A composer, he writes music.
And if he had lived today, he may have been the modern Bob Dylan or something like that. But in any case, he began to compose pieces of music. And however, unfortunately, when Schumann was only 16, his father passed away. His father died. He went on to the great beyond. And his mother attempted to influence him in a different direction, encouraging him to abandon music and pursue a career as a lawyer. So she probably said, well, it's very nice that you know how to play the piano and stuff like that, but you're not going to make money playing the piano.
How are you going to support your family?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How are you going to get a girl interested in you by playing the piano?
No.
How are you going to ever be able to afford a luxury apartment or buy a Mercedes-Benz car? Forget about being a musician. You make money, you get the girls by being a lawyer. So you're going to be a lawyer. Give up your music, abandon music, and pursue a career as a lawyer. Lawyers, of course, can make tons of money by suing people for millions of dollars and stuff like that, and that's why lots of people want to be lawyers.
Well, he did listen to his mom. He tried it. He attended law school for 2 years. But then, his heart probably wasn't in it, and he returned to music by taking lessons from a very famous music teacher back then, whose name was Friedrich Wieck. It looks like it's weak, but the Germans pronounce that W a V, so Wieck. During this time, Schumann injured his right hand. That's a big deal if you want to pursue music and are thinking about a career as a pianist. Or pianist also has an alternative pronunciation, which is pianist. I prefer pianist, but they're both correct. After this incident where he ruined his career as a pianist, he devoted himself to composing. If you ruin something, guys, it's almost like you destroy something completely. You just mess it up. It can't be fixed. It can't be set right. Ruin. You can ruin a career. That's more figurative. Or you could ruin maybe a cake you're baking by putting too much flour in the ingredients when you make it. It can ruin the cake. It doesn't taste like it should. So he actually ruined his career as a pianist by hurting or injuring his right hand.
We don't know how he did it, but after this incident, he devoted himself to composing music. So he thought, well, okay, I can't play the piano anymore, but I can still be a musician.
Yeah.
I can still compose music, and then other people can play it. Schumann later married Wieck's daughter Clara, or Clara, that's how I would pronounce it, but in German I guess it's Clara.
Clara.
And she was an accomplished pianist herself, despite Wieck's objection. Okay, so she was accomplished, which means she was very good. She had taken the lessons, and she was now an advanced piano player. So she was a musician herself. She probably played her husband's compositions there, but it was her father that objected to this. The father was the teacher, but yeah, I can teach you. You're a great pianist, but there's no way in hell you're going to marry my daughter. Forget about it. Get that idea right out of your mind.
The problem with Clara marrying Schumann was that Clara was really good at the piano, and she was bringing in a lot of money to her father's family. She was kind of supporting the father's family by her performing. They actually had to fight each other in court, and Robert and Clara won. They beat that father. Ooh. They went on to have a great great life together. They had 8 children. Clara was pretty busy because she kept performing, also composed music herself, and busy taking care of Schumann. So Schumann helped create the Neue Zeitschrift für Musik, the new journal for music, where he published many of his critical essays. Think of this as sort of a scholarly journal, a place where someone who is really proficient in music would, take a look at different pieces that were new, and he would give his comments or he would criticize some of the pieces, and then that journal or magazine, you could say, was published and people could read about it.
Yeah, that stuff would be Greek to me. I tried to read the liner notes to some CDs of classical music, and I just have no idea what they're talking about. It can be quite deep. But this journal helped renew interest in past composers such as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Ludwig van Beethoven. Of course, you've all heard of them. And maybe people had lost interest in those guys. Oh, those are yesterday. We don't listen to that stuff anymore. But his articles helped renew that interest in those past composers. To renew means to make something new again, like renewing a book from the library. If you like the book or if you haven't finished it, you can renew it, check it out again so you can keep reading it until you're done with it. And it renewed interest. It gave people new interest in Mozart and Beethoven and maybe some other people.
Yeah, remember back then, you usually as an artist weren't popular during your own lifetime. People would discover you after you were long gone, long dead. But this renewed interest in these composers, Mozart and Beethoven, as I said earlier, they were from the classical period. It also promoted new talent. So these are other composers who were writing at the same time. This journal was being published, and those musicians were Johannes Brahms and Frédéric Chopin. So those two composers were getting some publicity just because Schumann was writing about their music and critiquing it. So y'all want that. You want to have your work talked about so that more people can find out about you and maybe support you by buying your stuff, maybe buying pieces that you've written.
Okay, the next paragraph goes on to say, while he was well known in his lifetime, it was true that people knew about him when he was alive. Much of the appreciation for his work came after Schumann's death. So they knew about him when he was alive, but people appreciated his work more after he died. Just like Vincent van Gogh. People liked his paintings after he was dead. More than when he was alive. So yes, they had this appreciation or understanding and liking for this music, but it came after he was gone. And today his music is regarded as poetic, groundbreaking, and a true representation of the romantic form and style. So if somebody says, hey, what's romantic music? They're going to say, listen to Schumann and you'll know what it is.
Yeah, it's a great or true representation of that style. If you represent something, you are standing for that thing. So they can look at his music and go, oh, I see. That's exactly what that particular musical era was like. So the form, kind of how the music was laid out, and the style. Sadly, though, I have to say he died at a rather young age of 46. He had some problems mentally.
Oh, no.
Checked himself into a mental hospital and died there shortly thereafter, while Clara went on to live a long, long life. So right now, guys, after learning a little bit about Schumann, we both encourage you to take a listen to his music. But before that, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
接着后面的句子提到呢，他的父亲在他16岁的时候过世了。后面的句子 His mother attempted to influence him in a different direction, encouraging him to blank 3 music and pursue a career as a lawyer. 那么他的母亲呢，就尝试要影响他走不一样的 direction， 不同的方向，那么鼓励他怎么样音乐，然后 pursue a career as a lawyer， 希望他能够去当律师。要当律师，那当然要放弃对音乐的梦想。第3题 A 选项 overthrow 推翻政权， B abandon 放弃， C demonstrate 证明， D criticize 批评，要他放弃音乐去当律师，搭配文意。第3题就选择 B 选项 abandon。 接着在第4个空格，他虽然尝试要去上一些课，但是后来还是没有办法当成律师，再重回钢琴的世界里面，却又伤了自己的右手。第4个空格的句子写着 After this incident, he devoted himself blank for music. 我们要考同学，在这样的事件之后呢，他致力于作曲这件事情。我们说 devote oneself to加上名词或 VING 就是有致力于怎么样的事件，所以尽管是碰到动词，在这里的 to 后面呢，我们要变成 composing， 所以在这里要选择符合文法的 C 选项 to composing 才是正确答案。第3段的第1个句子提到 Schumann helped create the new journal for music.Blank 5, he published many of his critical essays. 他其实呢也协助成立了这个新音乐杂志，然后打上逗号，因为这是一个专有名词，然后他发表了许多 critical essays, 许多评论性的文章。这评论性的文章在哪里发表呢？就在他所共同协助创立的这个新音乐杂志里面，所以搭配文意，这里是关系副词的用法，代表地方。第5题的正确答案就选择 D, where。第6个空格后面的句子提到 He was well known in his lifetime. Much of the appreciation for his work came after Schumann's death.在这里提到他在还活着的时候 in his lifetime 他也算是有名的，但是 much of the appreciation 大部分对于他的作品的这种欣赏呢，其实是到了他死后才得到了这样子大家的认同跟鉴赏。在这里第6题我们来看一下 A, since 自从 B, once 一旦 C, when 当什么时候D, while 在这里要解释成为尽管虽然，搭配文意，第6题要选择 D 选项。尽管呢他活着的时候还算有名，但是作品得到大家的欣赏，可能是在他死後才發生的。第7個空格 Today his music is blank 7 as poetic, groundbreaking, and a true representation of the romantic form and style.今天呢他的音乐呢就被视为带有着诗意又有开创性，而且真正代表了浪漫主义时期的形式跟风格。在这里 C, regarded as 被视为有这样的特色，搭配文意，第7题的标准答案就选择 C, regarded as。 OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
It's now time to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us. And thankfully, there's the internet, especially YouTube, where you can go to listen to some of Schumann's music. If you're not familiar with his music, you might fall in love with it right then and there, right at your PC on your desk at home. Okay, everybody, that brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you for listening. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.